Okay, so I'm adding a new method called find student in my lab class, which will find if a student is present or not in the list. And as soon as I find it, I stop. Okay, so that is the method. It returns a true if the student is already in the class. It returns a false if he or she is not in the class. So what am I comparing? IDs. Okay, I'm comparing IDs. Does the method make sense? Right? All it is doing is comparing IDs. If you found that ID in the list, it says true. If you cannot, it says false. Right?
It should return false.
Find a student. No, the student was found. The student was found. Right? The method is find student. When we use it on the other hand, we'll use it properly. Here it says find student. Yes says yes, the student was found. Okay, does the method make sense? It is just traversing the whole list, looking at the ID, comparing the ID, and if the ID is already present, it returns a true. Okay. Now, when I enroll a student, I'm going to look for IDs because the contains is checking for references, and it makes sense, right? Remember how I showed it to you that in my tester, when I try to add the same student, S1, I'm okay. But if I create a new student, same data, then I'm able to add that student, and I shouldn't be able to add it. Okay, so now my method is ready. Now you go back here. So we don't need this loop here. Take a Boolean variable here, or you can use it directly, doesn't matter. Take a Boolean variable here, call it found, call the, what was it called? Find student method, and pass the student's ID to it. Okay, so I could have combined it in my if. Okay, so if the number of students is less than the capacity and what? There, and not found. Yes, thank you. And you couldn't find the student. Enroll him or her. And we have done this for the not for the simple, for the important reason that contains was checking references, because all objects are reference variables. Now it will work. So instead of putting it here, you could have written the whole condition here. Doesn't really matter. So what did I do? I first said, are you in the class? No, you're not in the class. Add it. If you're in the class, we don't add you. So I added this find method. Now I can never go wrong. Now I can never go wrong. Now test your student. Now test your tester. So this is now saying you can only enroll in the class if your IDs are different. I cannot enroll the same person in the class. I cannot. You shouldn't be. So now I should have a true and a false. I was having a true and a true, remember? Now I should have a true and a false. Now it works. So thank you for pointing out the contains. Right? So we have to do this. You can't simply use contains. You cannot. Contains checks for references. And maybe, did we do something like this in the course also in student? When courses were enrolled, we'll have to do that change there all. Courses enrolled was a string. We are okay. Courses enrolled was a string. We are okay. I'll look at it afterwards. Now you write that method. Public, you can fill up the comments afterwards. Boolean, remove a student from the class. As you add, you should be able to remove also. And now, usually with remove students, you don't give the whole student object. You will pass an ID. Take a string. You can call it ID. Now this is easy. What doesn't it like? Do we already have? Must return a result. Okay, let me do it first. Okay, here. With a remove, you usually remove the IDs. I mean, you could pass the whole object if you wanted, but I mean, usually you remove by IDs. You don't pass his or her name and course and program name. You don't have to. You could, and you will write the same thing. I can overload it for you. Let's overload it to be on the safe side. Okay, what will you do here again? You will do the same thing. Take a Boolean variable. Take the found. Use the find student method. Pass the ID. Right? Pass the ID. Now, if you found it, remove it. If you haven't found it, return false. Right? Same thing. So let's do if. Okay, so remove a student from the class. there should be a student in the class. So you can always check size is greater than 0. Yes.
So why are you not using find student directly in escape?
I'll write an overloaded method. It can be both ways, right? It can be both ways. In the add, it can only be one way. You pass the whole object. But in this,
I'm writing like instead of writing boolean found, you should use find student ID directly into escape.
yeah, you can in the if condition. In the if condition, you can use it directly. Yeah, I was just going step by step as it was coming in my head. You can put this condition right here. You can put it right here. It's just when with a new method, I do that. Is that what you're asking, Pratinder? Yes, you can do it. Okay, so if found, this and the condition. I mean, why even you can do this? You can do it better. Okay, let's do what you are saying. Okay, here. If there are students in the class, how do you check if there are students in the class? Get number of students enrolled. Remember, we had gets number of students. Okay. If the number of students enrolled is greater than 0, only then there is somebody in the class. Okay, now if there is somebody in the class, now what do you want to do? Then you want to check if. Why did I do this now? Because the Boolean variable was outside and I wanted to check inside. That's it. If you found the student. Here. Is that okay now, Pratinder? Works better? Yeah. Okay. Okay, he said, why do you use a Boolean variable? It's fine. You don't have to. Okay, what do you want to do? And I could have combined the condition also. So if the number of students is greater than 0, yes, there is somebody in the class. Try to find that student. If you found that student, remove him. Right? So how do you remove? Now tell me, how do I remove? Remove has two things. You can either remove an object or you can remove by an index. I need the index. I just don't need true and false. I need the index. Oops. See, more work now. I can't. So that's why you were doing by object maybe.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah, to do. Yeah, but you see, when you try, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. Because it's easy for me also.
Yeah.
Here, guys. Yeah, here. Okay, sure. What do you want to do? Student. Otherwise, we'll have to do a little more work, and you should never shy from work. Just because we have the program ready, I'm just using the method ready. Okay, what do we want to do? Get ID? Okay, here. Get student ID. Extra blank somewhere? Do I have an extra one? Yeah, which one do I have extra? Find student, one more. Here. And what do we want to do? Return a true. Okay, we were able to remove the student. In all other cases, return false. There. Same thing that we did in enroll. Same thing. Here, instead of adding, we are doing a remove. There, instead of checking that it was greater than 0, we checked if it was less than the capacity. But the job is the same, right? So before you add a student or before you remove a student, find out whether they are present or not. In add, you don't want to add again. In remove, you can't remove something that does not exist. Right? I can overload this method. I'll do it for you. I don't want to waste your time right now. I can do it for you. It will need another searching. When I search, I will have to find the index number, where you are, where is the position where the student was found. That's all I have to do. It's not a big job, but whatever. It's not, I mean, I can do it. It's not a big job. Do you want to, here? Otherwise, you will say that, okay, let's override it. It's not a big job. Oops. I thought I took this. Control C. I'll do it what I was doing. I'm overriding it. I'll write it in a different manner. What's the big deal? Here. If I don't do it, I can't expect you to do it. Okay, so this Boolean and these two methods are the same, but they are overloaded methods. In one, I'm taking the whole student. In the other, I'm taking the ID. That's the only difference. Though it's not, I just have to do a little more work here. How does it matter? Okay, so use your for loop. Use your student. I'll have to do something extra, that's all. Take it from students. Here. Okay, so what do you want to do? Check the ID as we were doing. Same thing. If s dot get student ID. So the find will not work. The find method will not work for me. So I'll have to kind of repeat that, which is okay. That's why I was avoiding it. But I can't use the find method because that's only returning me true or false. There. If you find it, oh, bless you. Where are we? Here. If you find it, I'm missing one again. 1, 2, and a 3. There. 1, you are done. No, I was fine then. Oh, the whole thing was missing. Here. Doesn't even like it. Do I have extra ones? That's for you. That's for you. Yeah, I don't need the extra ones. I was okay with it. Maybe I haven't completed it. That's why. I don't know. So, okay, I can't use the find here because I've already have the string. So what I'll do here is I'll remove it right here. I'm at the student. I'm at the element. Here, I'll have to do it this way here. So you are you are you, and you are you. Here. What happened? No, go ahead. A question? I'm looking through the array. As I'm looking through the array, I remove it right there. Because remove had two options. You can either remove the object or the position. The find was only returning me a Boolean value. So either I had to change that or I just wrote it again. So I'm removing it right there and I'm returning. So see, if you found it, how are you checking? The get student ID of this student S is same as this ID that you gave me. Remove him. Done. Job done. Go back. So I cannot use find here because find was doing a different job. There. Now you have an overloaded method. So you can remove, you cannot add by ID. Remember, when you enroll a student, just giving ID will not help because you have to have his name or her name, the program name, and so on. So I have to create an object and add it. But in removal, I have two options. I can give the object, remove this object, or I can say remove by ID. Okay. So the comments are missing. Don't worry. I mean, I'm not worrying about them because I'm trying to kind of save myself some time. You can fill it in. I've done it for all your methods. Done. So everything is done now. Now we were kind of checking stuff in the tester as we were going on, right? The sets and gets are not so important to check. The other methods are, and we kind of check the most important method. Let's look at course enrolled. See if course enrolled is okay. Remember we had something there. So I'm kind of leaving this. I'm not sure if explaining it at this time will help, but I can give it a try. This was a solution that was given, but I'll try. Okay, let's see when we were enrolling the student. Were we okay there? Course enrolled. String old course. Remove. Size is greater than 0. Drop a course. Add a course. The add is more important. Add a course. Maximum. Contains. Shall I do an equals ignore case here also, or contains will work here with course? It is a string.
Sure, it's string.
With string it is okay, I think. Overriding, yes. Yeah. With strings it will be okay, I think. Or all we'll have to do is, again, we'll have to do a for loop and check it if it doesn't work.
They check each character.
Each character, yes,
Not
yes.
the
Not the addresses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are okay. Here the contains is working fine because I have an array list of strings, and already the system has taken care. There is an equals method in string that has already taken care that when you do contains, it checks strings and not addresses. Otherwise, the same thing will have to be done here also. We'll have to do an equals ignore case. Yeah.
So if you make custom view, as I heard, we need to override the equals method.
Yeah, but not in strings. I can double check, right? Just to be sure. Let's double check the string class.
Yeah.
I think the equals method is overridden.
Yeah.
Look what it does in equals. Equals, equals, equals. Equals is coming from the object class. Equals, concatenate contains C, D, E. E, F, G, equals. Let's see what it does. Equals, compares the string to the specified object. Yep, string contains the same sequence of characters. See, string is already been taken care of. In the strings, we are okay, because it compares the sequence of characters, not the addresses. So we are okay with contains there, because it was an array list of strings. Therefore, I didn't think about it. I kind of did the same thing in lab class. But in lab class, you're comparing objects, not strings. I know strings and objects. They would have been better off by keeping the same rule everywhere. But in strings, they made your life easy, but a little more confusing also. So here, if you are kind of confused as to why, instead of contains here, you can always do your equals ignore case. You can take this new course and you can compare with your array list, element by element, and return true or false. But here we are safe. So you can try stuff. You can try these things. You can add a course and so on, and it should work. It should work. It's a string. It should work. Right? Okay, now the last job that I want to show you. I'm not writing the tester for you. I was thinking yesterday night, why should I spend 2 hours? Maybe I'll make an assignment for you. Because you haven't written a tester yet. I have done all these testers in class. Right? Where I show you, I'm checking this, and so on. So I'm thinking I may give you another assignment. I'm working on 2-3 assignments at a go. Because the exam is next week, I have to make that too. I want to give you an assignment because you made a small employee one, and I'm still struggling to mark employees. I've given up. I think I'll just ask Java files from you. Believe me, I have no clue how people are giving me files. They're all doing it in a different manner, which is okay. Like, can't blame you, right? Okay, so this has been taken care of. The only thing I want to show you before I leave the tester here is, how do you create a local time to set the time? That's important. Remember, when you create a lab class, you're passing a start time and an end time. How do you create that? You can't use now always. You can't say now, because start time and end times are not dependent upon now. They are a particular time. So you should know how to do them. So we will have to use the off method to do it. Keep something in mind, guys. On the front end, from the user, you are asking, please input the time. That time will be a string. The common user will give you a string like 3:15 maybe. It depends on you how you're saying. You can say, give me the hour, give me the minute. You can be as clear as that and not make a mistake. But once you have it, then it is the job of the application to put it in a local time variable and pass it to the class. So I want to show you something, how to do that. Okay, so what do we have? Lab. So try to do this with me. Create a lab class. And I did this while you were gone on break. I have that empty constructor, but I needed a capacity in it and I needed an array list. I added two things to it to test my stuff. This definitely is needed for what I'm writing. Or maybe not, because you know what? We are not going to add any students. I am just showing you how to do time. So I did this when you were away, just because I needed it. You don't need it. So when you see it on the Blackboard, you'll say, oh, why did she do that? I was just testing something. Okay, let's come back to the tester. You tell me how to do it. Let's create a new lab class. So to keep myself easy, I created that empty constructor. Okay, now I want to set its time. These are few ways you can do it. Take your lab class, set the start time. It says, give me a local time object. Right, so how do you do it? Remember, we just looked at it. Local time off. And let's say it's 224, but I can't give 224. The local time has to be given as 1424. What was it? Local time off, right? Two of them. 1424. This is how I'll have to do it. Now I know that a common user cannot do it, but remember, this application is written by the programmer, not by the common user. From the common user, you are asking hour and you are asking minutes. Now, as a string, that's fine, but then it is your job to take that hour. If the person is giving it in 12-hour clock, you will have to convert it into 24 hours and pass it here. So don't forget that while we are writing programs, there is a front end also. And we are not writing the front end. We are assuming that things will be given to us in the right format. So therefore, I'm giving 24, 14, 24. And now we all know that it works. So you can look at your method. You can get your start time just because there is nothing else, okay? Where are you get start time? There it is. And we've already formatted it and do a system out println of it. I want to show you something that you have to be careful about, that I'll stress more when I do my next example. This should work. There's nothing wrong in it. 1424 is a valid time, right? And it should work. Let's do this. I'll show you something that does not work. So looks fine, 2:24 p.m., right? Don't give a 2 here. You cannot. If you give a 2 here, see what will happen. That will be an AM then, because it is expecting time in 24 hours. So don't make that mistake. Like, you can't. But remember, you are writing it. Now what happens if I do something like this? What do you expect? Runtime exception. Why? Because the Java, this class says, bring your mouse over it. Do you notice? It throws an exception. It throws an exception. So if you try to do it, which is fine, syntactically there is nothing wrong, there is your date time exception. So your job as a programmer to catch these exceptions. That's our next step. I don't want to do it here because there was quite things that were new here, right? I used a date time class, a local time class. Thankfully, I didn't use the day. Then we talked about contains, and that's good that it got clarified, and I hope it's clarified in your head that strings are just special kind of objects. And I've written the equals method. I'll tell you what it is. If you don't understand it, don't worry about it. It's just something that can be done. Now, what do you do here? What if, so this looks untidy. This looks untidy. What should you do? What should you do? Handle it. Put any error, put a method that can throw an exception in a try. You're trying to do something. That's why it's called a try catch. And if an exception occurs, and what kind of exception was occurring? It was called a date time exception. I mean, you could simply write exception, doesn't matter. I'm calling it E. Did it import the class? Yes. Okay, local time. Okay, it imported the class for me. It's here, it is date time exception. Okay, the day of the week, because I was using it before, you can remove it now. I thought I would stick to one new class at a time. Okay, so what do you want to do? Now, instead of that untidy messages that you saw, this is exception handling. Why is it exception handling? Because it is much neater. Do you see the difference? Much neater. Time is invalid. It gives a message to the user. Now, this is what you could use in the front end. This is what you could use in the front end. So now, our next job is to learn a little bit about exception handling. So when we say things like, if the value is less than 0, don't set it, otherwise set it. You don't do anything in less than 0. Maybe you could throw an exception. Maybe a message can come on the screen that capacity should be greater than 0. You know what I mean? Till now, we've just said, if it is greater than 0, use it. We haven't done anything in the else part. We've said leave its default value. Is that the right approach? Not necessarily. You could say, yes, capacity is 30. That could be a right approach. But it is always better to tell the user that the input value was incorrect. So now we will start learning a little bit of error handling. But this is to show you. So I'm not doing the tester with you. You're most welcome to do it. I know that all my classes are correct. I do a little bit of cheating. I take my code and I put it in BlueJ. And with BlueJ, you can test very quickly. Right? You can really test quickly. Have you ever seen BlueJ? No? Okay, let me show it to you. It's a baby, like it's a... And it doesn't help in anything else. No coding, no coloring, nothing, no help at all. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project for you. just for the heck of it. I don't know where to create it. Really doesn't matter. What are we creating? Student something, right? Student lab class. Okay. I'm going to create a new class. We called it student there. Oops. Just to show you how quickly it can be done. In this student class, I'll take this code, Control A, Control C, and I'll put it here. It's not that I'm saying that you should be doing it, but, and remember we had a package statement, which I don't need here. This is entirely for educational purposes. Okay, so that's all I did. I created a student class. I can compile it. And it says no syntax errors, right? So, but no color coding, nothing. You see that nothing will help. You can't get your code on something and see, oh, what is the string class or what, nothing. It's just normal. You should know how to code. So no help like in Eclipse, okay? Now, the advantage is this. My class is ready. I can do a right click. I can say create a new student. And it needs a name. It needs a ID. And it needs a program name. I do an OK. Where is my object? I can see it. I can do a right click and I can add a course. Okay, so let's add a course. Comp1008. True, it was added. Now, if you want to see his or her information, you can get the login name. Works, the first 4 characters. So you can start checking, add a course, add the credits. Okay, let me add some credits to this person. 2 credits. If you give a negative value, remember, negative value, we were returning false, or were we already did nothing? I don't remember. Nothing. So let's look at his get credits. Still at 0. Nothing happened. Right? So this way I can check my methods quickly. Let's try to add that method. Let's try to get the toString method. So now this is not very neat because it's giving in one line, but you can always inspect it. Inspect is not very neat too, but this is what is inside it, which is okay. Because since you can check each of these methods, it's not a big deal. So you can check the name. You can drop a course. Okay, so let's try to add another course. Oh, I forget now. How did I get his? I'm trying to get his list of, there it is, get courses enrolled. Okay, so it's an array string. So comp C is small, 1008 and a blank in between. Okay, let's try to add the course again. Remember, we shouldn't be able to add the course again. Comp 1008 contains. I'm trying to check if contains works. Okay, this is a new object being created. Let's see, it's a string. False, you can't add it. Comp 1008 is already there. Now, if you change that comp 1008 to anything else, you put some blanks in between or something, then of course it won't work. If you say, I'll call it comp 1008 together, like something like this, then that's a different string altogether. Then this will be added because it's a different string altogether, right? So this way in BlueJ, I can quickly look at my cred, everything. Can you drop a course? Let's try to drop CCC. You can drop a course called CCC because there is no course that exists. But you can drop a course like Comp 1008. And it should come back with true. Right? Now, if you want to see what's in your get courses enrolled, so it says the size is 1 because you only have the capital Comp 1000. So this way you can do it quickly. Right? But that doesn't mean that this is a replacement of writing a tester. So BlueJ is telling you things that they work, but as a programmer, you will still have to write your application. You can't avoid that. You cannot, right? So because these things happen, it kind of lets me do it quickly. Whenever I write code, and I want to be sure that it works, I just bring it to BlueJ and I test it quickly. That way I don't have to write the tester to do it. That way I can give you the dirty job to do it. Right? So that's how I tested it, but I didn't do the lab class. So of course, if I would have done the lab class, I would have got that problem. right? And you can keep creating objects here. You can create another object, as many as you like. See, like if I wanted to create with the same ID, I don't have the lab class, but I could do it. Program name. There's your another one. Now, if I created a lab class, and I'll go and get the code again from lab class. So if you want, you can download this on your, computers. I mean, it's not a professional one. Of course, you know that, right? It's not a professional one, but at least if you are given an assignment, you can quickly check it. I'll remove the package statement. There's no concept of packages in BlueJ. I think you can do them, but I've never tried it because, as I said, it's just this. Okay, now see. So it's already compiled, right? Now, oh, not you. Where are you, the other one? So to compile it, you can just go right click and say compile also if you want, or you can, or see how it has used the arrow because lab class is using students. Create a lab class with the simple one. Create a student. Just kind of creating some students. So that's student 1. Create another student. That's student 2. So these are different objects, okay? That's student 2. Let's create error expo, 2 of them. You can create another student with the same data, AA. You can always inspect it. That was the AA student. I'm trying to do this so that I can show you that I can't add the same object. So this guy was 1, A1 and A is what I gave. Same kind of data, but 2 different objects. Okay. Now in the lab class, to enroll a student, you click on this. Student 1 gets enrolled. There. Student 1 is enrolled. Right? So see, you can see objects. So it just feels better. Can I enroll the second student? Remember, this needs a student object. So I just pick them from here. Second student enrolled. This student is a different student, but his ID is same, 1 and 1. False. So this one can quickly check things. Right? So I'm unable to add a different student with the same ID, and definitely I should not be able to add the same this also. So it's working. So now see here, so you can check each one of them, not always so neat, but so I don't know what the get start time will be null because we haven't set it. Oh, runtime exception, because I'm trying to format something and that doesn't exist. I haven't done all the work, right? There. So that's how you can quickly do it. So that's how I kind of behind the scenes, if just so that it helps. So you can see things being created right here. These are just objects. They're real objects. And if you inspect them, you can even inspect them. What is in the instructor name? Null. Course, null. Room number, null. Capacity, 10. Start time, null, null. What's in the student list? Remember, to start with, it is null. You can inspect it. Oh, it has 2. Oh, I added 2 students. Sorry, I added 2 students. There are the 2 students. Notice how they're showing pointers to show that they're pointer variables. There is first A11A, right? And the courses enrolled for A, nothing. We didn't enroll anything, 0 size. So it's easy to play around with if you know how to use it, and it doesn't take that much time. But it is not a professional ID. People will laugh at you if you say I use BlueJ, okay? But it's something that is so easy to use from education point of view and to quickly check. So if all you have to do is download it and away it goes. So it doesn't help in any kind of typing or anything. If I make a mistake, if I miss my semicolon, it's not going to say anything till I compile it, right? Like in Java, it kind of helps you. There's no help here. So you can go to the student class and start doing something like dot and it will do something for you. Nothing, no help at all. Whereas Eclipse helps you so much. You do a dot and it gives you a list of method names. You don't have to remember anything. And there is no such help in BlueJ, because it was again created from the viewpoint that you should know how to use it. Okay, I don't think we can we can start the next one. So I'll have to stop here. But tell me, is there anything? Oh, we have 10 minutes. Let me do this. Okay, wrap your heads around it. See if you can do it. I was saying that the contains method of the string class behaves properly in the sense that it checks the contents of the object. And I showed the equals method to you in the string class, or equals ignore case, same thing, right? And the contains method. Because it has overridden the equals method to say that when I say contains will go and call the equals method, and the equals method will check the contents of the object. Now, what we did in our lab class, I changed the code and I said, okay, since contains is not working properly with student objects, and it won't. Student is not an object sitting in the library. It's something that you've created. So contains will do what? It will check the references. It will check the addresses. So if you try to add two objects of the same object twice, it will say cannot do it. But if you duplicate the two objects in different references, it will say I can add it. It won't say anything. So how did we get around it? We said we cannot let add an object with the same data inside again. We shouldn't, because it's the same student in them, right? It's the same student in them. What can be done if you do not want to change that code at all and still wanted to use the contains method? What you could do is this. You can override the equals method in the student class. So like string class has overridden the equals method, you can override the equals method in your class. And notice what I'm saying. I'm saying if the ID of the student is equal to the ID of whom you're comparing with, equals is true. So now what will contains do? Contains will call the equals method. What is the equals method doing? Comparing the ID, and it will work without you doing that extra stuff in the lab class. So this was another solution. I did not give you this solution because maybe it's not as straightforward as doing that. There you are saying, oh, let's compare the IDs and do it. And it works, it will be fine. But this can be another thing you can do. You can override the equals method in your class, and what will it do? Do whatever you want to do. I said if the IDs are same, then compare the IDs is what I'm saying. So contains calls the equals to compare. Before, when this was not overridden, whose equals were you calling? The object class. And what does the object class equals does? Compares addresses. So it said, oh, addresses are different, I can add again. Addresses are same, I cannot add again. Now when you override the equals method, whose equal method does contains call? The student's class. And what have you done in equals? You are comparing the IDs. So contains becomes the same as comparing the IDs. And you cannot add a student again. So if this makes sense to you, you can do this. I went the easier way first, where I wrote my find student. I said I'm going to compare the IDs myself, and if I find it, I'm going to do. Definitely this is less code. The only drawback is this. Now contains will use this. Now contains will not compare references. So if in the same program you wanted contains to work as it does, and also this, you can do it. Like you cannot, because once you override it, the contains works with this equals. When you don't override the equals method, the contains work with the equals method of the object class, which compares addresses. So if you don't need the original contains, then you can do this. But if you want to use both of them, you want to say contains works as it is, but when I add an element, add a student or remove a student, I want to do equals, then you write the code that I have written. If I do this, if I use the override method, then the contains will not work as it works normally. It will work according to this method, which could be fine for you. Right, in this project, maybe this is all I want, and that's fine. So keep in mind, there is something about contains which is different for a string object, though that is an object too, and is different for a user-defined object or any other object to be per se. Not only student-defined, any other object but string. Contains compares addresses. So if you're saying contains, you're basically saying, is that address already in my list? Remember, an array list is nothing but a list of addresses. It points to where data is saved. So that's what you're doing. So if you try to add the same object, it will say, it contains it. But if you duplicate the data into another object and try to add that object, it will add it, because it's a new address. It's a new address. So I leave this override code here. I haven't used it because I wrote the code in my lab class, but at least you know what I'm talking about. If you go back and look at the examples and listen to the lecture, so you know what I'm talking about. So is this wrong? No, it's a smart way. It's a very smart way. This is what you will do as a programmer, right? It is a very smart way of doing it, as long as you don't need both. And I didn't need it. I didn't need it in my code, so I could have gone this route. I just chose to go the other route so that it made more sense to you. And the same thing now I'm doing in the equals method. And now you can use contains also. Try it, it will work. I mean, we've already tested it during the break. So both work. Both work. I stuck to the one because it was more straightforward. But this is something that you should know, that you can override all the methods of the object class according to your own requirement in your own class. So I overrode the equals method. I said equals two objects are equal if their IDs are equal. That's how I've defined. Two strings are equal if their contents are equal. Who's defined that? Some programmer of the string class. And I have said my two student objects are equal if they have the same ID. I have defined my equals method like that. Okay. So the contains is working in courses enrolled, but contains was not working in students enrolled, because one was string and one was student object. And keep that in mind, right? So that takes care of what I had to do today. Unfortunately, you couldn't do what I wanted to do. Exception handling I'll do after we come back.